All right, zoning board. We are live. We are recording. Phone lines will remain off. Go for it.
Thank you, Matt. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting of June 9th, 2026. This evening, we have a scheduled work session and 7 post-hearing decisions. So we'll get to the first one right away. Lee Cohen and Erica Fleischman, 23 Glenway, Springs, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-130-0-13.1. Description is to remove existing decking and to construct 273 square foot swimming pool, 286 square foot pool deck, pool fencing, pool equipment, a 450 square foot accessory structure, 70 square foot sauna, 330 square foot decking, walkways, 460 square foot driveway extension with EV charger, 405 square foot porch, grill area, window well, retaining walls, planters, and an upgraded sanitary system on a parcel of land containing freshwater wetlands. Relief sought is a natural resource special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the East Hampton Town Code, and 8 variances are required for this application. It's now gone down to 4, but I'll just read the notice into the record. Variances of 98, 75, 66.5, 54, 30, and 19.5 are required from 255-430 of the Town Code to allow the proposed pool fence to be constructed to sauna 25, window well 33.5, decking 46, porch 70, and grill area 80.5 feet from freshwater wetlands where 100-foot setbacks are required. One variance of 42 feet is required from 255-430 of the Town Code to clear vegetation 8 feet from the edge of wetlands where a 50-foot setback is required. One variance of 10 feet is required from 255-1110 of the Town Code to construct the proposed pool equipment 20 feet from the northern front yard lot line where a 30-foot setback is required, and any other relief necessary. Zoning district is B residence, zone X flood zone, secret class is type 2. Member Kiley, would you like to begin your deliberation?
Yes, as you mentioned, this application started with 8 requests for variance, and we are now down to 4 with the sauna, the grill, the shower not being constructed. The shower is being constructed on the accessory structure, but the existing is being removed. Pool equipment being moved to a conforming location. Pool fence has been moved approximately 70 feet from the wetlands, further away from the wetlands. The driveway has been moved to the north away from the wetlands as well. Additional dry well for the outdoor shower has been included. The abandonment of the traditional septic system, which was adjacent to the wetlands, is a big plus for me in locating it to the north. That does come with the complication of a large stand of white oaks, which are an important species in the area. So that becomes a trade-off to get the updated septic system, but I feel that is what pushes me over the edge as far as approving this application. The conditions of the revegetation aren't quite clear to me, but I'd like to see a plan of that. I'd like to see the survey kind of updated to reflect what the actual requests are. The survey that was submitted is very busy with revisions. So pending seeing that survey and a re-veg plan, I would approve this application.
That'd be one of our conditions of approval.
Okay.
Before issuance of a building permit. Okay. Vice Chair?
Yeah, thank you for that, Jim. Yeah, this was an interesting one. It came in with the 8 variances needed and a very active discussion about protecting the wetlands. Go through a couple of things here. The wetlands were important for several reasons, but one was it was also described as being a vernal pool, which is seasonal and helps protect any area with spring flooding and river flooding and shunt water that's rainfall. What they're offering is a new IA system They removed a couple of things from the initial application, which is just to help it make it a little more palatable to us. The existing outdoor showers to be removed. In a letter later on where we got one from Lori Wilshire after, I think it's dated April 17th, where she said we'll agree to the recommended conditions in the TAM, and that included gutters and leaders and drywalls, that although there was not necessarily a nexus for that. I think they offered them just to show they're going to do as much as they can to keep the potential rainwater from causing us a problem working its way into the septic and bringing along with it silt and things that can possibly damage the wetlands. They proposed a 1,010 foot scenic easement. They agreed to us that all the TAM recommendations. The fence did get moved from the edge of the wetlands to 70 feet away, they said, and the planner said it might be closer to 60, but it's still a significant move. Let me just see. The proposed decking that they have will have a similar impact to existing decking, was the feeling of the planner in this, that it was not a major difference. The window well was also not a major concern, which was one of the variances they required. The wetland in the corner lot constrict this uses on this parcel pretty seriously. The wetland on one side to the, I guess that's the south, and on the north, of course, it's a corner lot, so it's both to the east and to the north. It's got front yards. There's a large increase in total lot coverage, though, 129%, and the scale of improvement in general is quite significant. The clearing is going from 8,100 square feet to 8,700 square feet. Those are all significant. I want to point out that there were two excellent letters from neighbors. I thought that it's always important for us to recognize that we not only read them, but we take them into consideration. I thought that the way in which the arguments for protecting wetlands were laid out could be used over and over again in other areas. In this case, the neighbors had an active role in trying to clean up the wetland, maintain it, haul out invasive species. Their dedication to it should be matched by our ability to help protect it. I have to ask myself two questions about this. Is the amount of mitigation that they've offered in terms of the septic system, which has now moved much further from the wetland by the IA system going to northeast corner, is that enough to approve this based on, and the scenic easement that's offered over the wetland? Is that enough to approve this application? I think a very good point was made by the planner when he said that at some point we have to ask, is it too much development on a parcel this size? I think it's marginally there. I think this is a tough question. Do we protect the wetland with this new actions on the part of the applicant here, moving as far as they can away from there with the driveway, with fences, with a shower, with a septic, moving as far away as we can, and then offering to put an easement in that area, working as best they can? There was some discussion of what we can do about helping to stall the spread of bamboo. All of those are positives. On the other hand, when I look at what's going on the north side, there's a lot of development. I'm very bothered, as was Member Kiley, with the idea that these really significant stand of white oaks are coming down. All in all, though, I guess I am going to line up with Member Kiley and approve this based on the fact that we're doing the best we can to protect the wetlands in this location. I think there was some retrenchment on the part of the applicant, taking away a couple of the requests they had in their initial. They tried to pare it down a little bit. I still think this is one that could have gone either way in my mind. I don't like the level of development. I don't like the removal of the oaks. But I do think we're doing something here very positive to protect the wetland. And as was pointed out again by the letter and by our planners, the letters by the neighbors, it really has an active role in helping relieve flooding in the spring, and keeping that as healthy and as pristine as we possibly can is certainly one of our goals. So with certain reservations, I am going to agree with Member Kiley, and I'm going to approve this application.
Thank you. Member Berger?
Hey, thank you. Well, I went through kind of the same process, and when I walked in here, I still don't know what I'm going to decide. I think they've done a lot, as already mentioned, in reducing the variances. And, moving, doing some of the revegetation and improving the environment. And I came up with the same dilemma, I guess, of is it too much, as Anna had said, too much for this size of a lot. And ultimately, I think in variances that they did a good job of reducing them and moving things out. But overall, in the NRSP status, I feel that the addition, adding the accessory structure is very large on the northern part of the property. It didn't need a variance, but it does need an NRSP. And I think it's that borderline area, but on my view is that it's too much. I think they 255, 551, that they could have preservation and natural resources. We know there are keystone oaks up in that area, in the area of the pool. But ultimately, I think this pushes it just beyond what I could accept, despite a lot of good things that were done in this application. So I think 255, 551, that they could look at alternative uses and small entailing, alternative designs with smaller buildings and structure and some other reduced yard to setback. And I think, so I'm going to deny this application based on the NRSP standards.
Thank you. Member Mary?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So has been said, this application improved at the public hearing, removing 4 items completely, much improving the variance for the pool fence. And in the letter that we received from Lori Wiltshire, that came in, we had left the record open. She notes all in that there's going to be 4,500 square feet of revegetation, and that would include the revegetated buffer around the wetland and the scenic easement over it. So that's in the plus, in the positive column, no doubt. However, there remains a significant increase, as Vice Chair indicated, in total coverage of 2,600 square feet, which, it's part of what creates the sprawl. There's a sprawl in this application, but still that total coverage is materially below the max allowed. The biggest additions, the pool, what I consider to be the biggest additions, the pool deck, and the accessory structure, I think that's 450 square foot or 435, do not need wetland variances, but obviously remain in NRSP jurisdiction. And that's part of what creates this sprawl, because they're trying to get these items, rather than keeping them closer or more consolidated with the house, they're moving them north. The house itself is not being expanded. The items that need the variances, those are substantial variances. However, the deck and the porch, the window well is not an issue. It's required egress, and it's really does not have an environmental detriment. The deck and the porches, they're expanding somewhat. The variances are large, but they're really in place, partly in place of where there was already decking that wrapped around the side. So it's not a big incremental change to me in the environmental conditions on the property. Ms. Wiltshire said that, she asserted there'll be no impact to character and no environmental impact. And just on the character for a second, you can look, it's a large neighborhood. You can look around. It's very deciduous, right? A lot of oak. There's a very, how can I call it, modest, sense of character. And this will perhaps when it's all said and done, it may look somewhat outside of character. With respect to but, it's not clear that's definitely going to happen. Obviously, I read closely the letters and the comments from the neighbors, and I completely do respect them. But I do believe that between the re-veg, the buffer, the scenic easement, the moving the driveway north, obviously the upgraded septic system, I think the wetlands are protected. So when it comes to all the variances related to the wetland setbacks, I believe they meet the standards for the variances as well as the NRSP. In terms of the NRSP for the rest of the sort of development, I looked hard at it, but as I understand NRSP code, it relates really only to what are listed in our natural resources code as protected resources. And so the protected resource in this application is the wetland, which I've just talked about. I think the issues are mitigated. I love white oak trees. I think they're incredibly important environmentally, ecologically, to the character. And we really don't know how many are coming out, but it's going to be a fair amount. And that is problematic. I mean, 255-111, I think it's K1, which is embedded in the standards for 254 for natural resources, does say to promote preservation of natural resources and native keystone vegetation species. However, it's still, I think, under the NRSP code, I don't think I can actually consider the loss of those trees as an element of a decision-making on the NRSP full standard for this development. And the last thing, the accessory structure, Ms. Witcher also said there'd be no detriment to the neighbors. Putting a 450 square foot accessory structure, basically right at the minimum setback, can be detrimental to a neighbor, although we did not hear from that neighbor with concerns in the public hearing. So all in, I am also, like some of the other board members, I felt a little verklempt about the application coming out of, but all in, when I really do look at the standards and balance what's being done, I'm going to approve the application in its entirety.
Thank you very much, Jane. I agree with my fellow board members. I'm going to be approving this application as well. For me, I always ask, is the mitigation enough to approve this? And at the end of the project, will the property be more environmentally sensitive than it is now? And I think in this particular case, the scenic easement being proposed with the 10-foot deep wetlands buffer and the 4,500 square feet of revegetation, the new septic system, gutters and leaders. I think the applicant did make an effort to make this a better application, going from 8 to 4 variances. So for these reasons, I agree with my board members, and I will be approving this in its entirety.
Madam Chair, I forgot to say one thing. May I just add? So in the public hearing, we questioned the applicant about plumbing potentially inside the accessory structure, and they said no. And there was like no toilet, no water. But we also do know that there is plumbing being brought to that structure for the shower attached to it. So I didn't know if we need any kind of condition to make sure that it remains with, because it would be very easy to tap those plumbing lines, for something inside. So I don't know if we could do a condition or a CNR or something.
I think you do a covenant that there won't be interior plumbing.
Right, exactly. I think it's excellent condition of
That's a
approval.
good idea.
So that it doesn't become a dwelling.
Against town code on top of
Right,
it, but
Full house,
it's just
right.
that belt and suspenders.
Yeah.
But I guess town code could change.
This is,
So
yeah, that's an excellent idea. I like that idea. All right, thank you. Council, are we good? Moving on. The next is Gerard Scollins, 62 Franklin Drive, Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-70-4-15. I'm sorry, get my act together. Description is to allow a pool patio to remain 15 feet from a front yard lot line where 30 is required. Relief sought is a variance from 255-11-10 Table of Dimensional Regulations and any other relief necessary. A 15-foot variance to allow a pool patio to remain 15 feet from a front yard lot line where 30 is required. Zoning district is B Residence Zone X. Flood zone, secret class is type 2. Member Berger, you can start the deliberation.
Okay. All right, this one, we had the hearing on May 12th. There was an agent, Andrew Goldstein, that presented for the applicant. And the survey we have from the hearing is March 3rd, 2026. This property is in Montauk in the Hills area, and it fronts on two roads, Franklin Drive, and I forgot what the other one is, Monroe Drive. The concrete pool patio is on facing the Franklin Drive side, and it's a 15-foot variance to allow it to remain 15 yards, where 15 feet rather, where 30 feet is required. There was a story here on the pool. Initially, the patio had been, a part was wooded, and at one point, the homeowner changed that to concrete. There were a series of permits that were generated for the pool, and there was an error either in the building department or in the contractor that was hired for the job, and they got the permit to approve the 15-foot setback. And this went unnoticed. It went unnoticed from the beginning, and then in 2008 and 2009, and in 2020, there was they renewed the permits a couple of times. In 2022 and 2024, they built, according to the plans, from the wood to the concrete, and used the contractor at that point also had advised them that they didn't need to get another permit. But regardless, the plans that were used were the same that were used, and the error in the setback was just generated going forward again. So now they're here to get the relief for the 15-foot deck. There's also a slight portion on the south side that wasn't noted to be removed on the survey, but it's only about 1.14 feet. And in that case, the applicant's not looking for a variance. They are going to remove the portion of the slate and the concrete so that it meets the 15-foot side yard variance. So on this, I do think it meets the standards for, it's not going to change the character of the neighborhood. We've seen the photos, and there's much screening on this property as it is, and the benefit can't be really done by another method. It's a substantial variance of 50%. However, I think in this case, it's not going to have any adverse impact on any physical or environmental in the neighborhood. And is it self-created? Sort of, but I'm not going to let that stop it. So I am approving this application.
Thank you. Member Mary?
Yes, thank you. So I'm going to start with using the test standard that I often use, or we as a board often use. If this application for a 50% variance setback relief for a front yard pool deck had come to this board prior to being built or the permit issued, would I have denied it? And it would be very, very consistent with my record about material setback, side and front yard and rear yard setbacks, to have denied it. And in fact, just going through the standards, I actually don't necessarily agree. I really, it doesn't meet any of the 5 variance standards as I see them. The variance is very substantial. It's not the minimum necessary. It's entirely self-created. This, again, if this were coming to us, right, before it had been built. It's entirely self-created. The benefit sought, which they said is having lounge chairs by the pool, could be achieved by other methods. And I believe it violating front yard setbacks for appurtenances, pools, pool decks does cause an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood. Now, by the way, Mr. Goldstein said we're not allowed to consider that. It's not in the standard, but he said that's not legally what front yard setbacks are for. But in our code in 255.11.7 and I don't know the other one, there's another one, but it definitely says that one of the reasons for setbacks. Now, with all that said, there seemed to, and by the way, the property history card shows us that this is the 3rd time that this owner and applicant has done work that didn't necessarily meet code without the proper review and approvals. So, if I put everything else together, I would like to be denying this. However, the only reason I am going to approve it is it does appear there was an incorrect building permit that, was ultimately issued, I guess, to legalize this. And the applicant has put in a letter. It'll cost him $26,000 to take it apart. And I don't have the wherewithal to challenge that number. So all in, I just want to make clear, I'm approving this, but not necessarily because I believe it meets the standards.
Thank you. Member Kiley?
Well, I agree with both my fellow board members on their view of this, but it looks like it was an unfortunate error that perpetuated itself over several years. And what we're left with is a decision that is difficult, but I think we have to approve it at this point, the way it stands. I will approve it.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Yeah, thank you. There are a couple of things here that have already been mentioned, but kind of important. The building permit being issued for the pool patio and having put in was done in error and was not, in these cases, it's hardly the applicant's fault that this happened. However, there is reason for us to occasionally say it doesn't matter what happened with that, it's still got a major effect on because it affects the neighbor. In this case, the variance that was needed adjacent to the neighbor, who was mentioned by Member Berger, has been removed because they're going to remove the patio there. So the most affected individual from this is no longer have a variance up against their property, a mutual property line. Variance therefore is to the roadside, and on the roadside it's going to do a lot less damage. What is the point of the double setback? This point is to protect neighbors and the neighborhood from noise and additional activity that might be intrusive on them. In this case, that additional activity is going to be roadwood, which is a natural buffer for the others. It's a factor in it. I think the basic factor is what everyone said. It's not going to affect the wetlands to the east. They were mentioned. There's really not a lot else to say. That it's unfortunate and we see these things happen, but I don't feel we can punish him, this applicant, for the fact that the building permit moved ahead with it. I didn't see a lot of error on anyone's part. They built what they were told to build, found out it was illegal, and it needed to have had to come in front of us. So along with my other board members, I'm going to approve this application.
Thank you. These are always tough applications. I agree with my fellow board members. I'm going to be approving it as well. But one of the reasons I'm going to approve it is obviously one of the permits was issued in error, but the plans approved at the time depicted the pool patio in its current location. So that, helps me a little bit to feel better about approving this. And they're also agreed to remove the non-conforming section of the patio. The other condition that I looked at is, and the TAM points it out, is that the pool and patio are currently screened from outside view by a wooden fence and a line of screen trees bordering the front yard lot line. And in terms of total coverage, it's 3,945 which is well within the maximum of 5,081 that's allowed by the code. And I think what's going on in this neighborhood is typical of what goes on in this neighborhood. So for all the reasons stated, I'm going to be approving this application as well. All right, let me put this away. Next is Natalie Barth, 14 Cow Hill Lane in Wayne-Scott, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-197-1-29.8. Description is to allow an existing pool patio to remain 11.1 feet from the rear yard lot line, where 20 feet is required. A variance of 8.9 feet is required from 255-1110 of the town code to allow the pool patio to remain 11.1 feet from the rear yard lot line, where 20 feet is required, and any other relief necessary. The zoning district is B resident zone, X flood zone, secret class is type 2. Member Kylie, would you like to begin the deliberation?
Yes, so 14 Cow Hill Lane was brought to us by Jameson McWilliams, representing the client. Plans were submitted on December 2024, and permit was issued February 10th, 2025, and the work was completed. And upon inspection, I believe, to close out the permit, it was discovered that the distance from the side yard or backyard backyard lot line was incorrect. Should have been a 20-foot setback. They were thinking it was 10 foot. They actually did build 1 foot further into the property, plus the 8.9 foot variance. One of the neighbors, Adrian Sanchez, expressed some concern and tried to get information, was not able to do that, as was Jameson. I don't believe any of this was malicious. It was again, an error that was carried forward, and the client can't really be penalized for this, I don't think. So I think, I will approve this as it stands.
Thank you. Vice Chair?
Yeah, we have a second one where we have a building permit enter into this, but building permit was issued mistakenly thinking that if it observed the 10-foot setback, that would be typical for a building in this case. But since the patio extended on into the building, it's an extension of a pool patio, and of course that calls for double setback. So double setback here was not met. It was mentioned by Member Kylie, they didn't build within 10 feet. They actually built out at 11 feet, 11.1 feet, which shows they were showing some respect for what they thought the building permit had offered them. I don't know what anyone did particularly wrong here. We discover later on that this is not, it's not permissible by our current standards for anything attached to any patio or deck attached to a pool. I think that that area that's most in question here, that does border on the neighbor who did come in and comment, is well screened at this point and well protected. I think that if this moves forward with an approval, I think we should ask that screening be covenanted, that it will stay in place so that we don't find in the future, if there was other work, that suddenly we have this pool area within 10 foot of the sideline. The buildings were permitted. The building permit was issued in September of 2024, so it's not dating back that far. It's all seems as if someone went in, got a building permit for structure they wanted, built it, and then found out that they were, at fault. Well, in this case, I think if we can protect that neighbor who had the concern for the future, I'm happy to approve this application. Everybody can comment on whether or not they think the covenant is necessary, but I'm suggesting it.
Thank you. Member Berger?
Okay, it's similar to this one, but even more so, I guess, more or less. I too am going to approve this. This one actually is very similar. I think to correct this would be a much bigger task for this applicant as opposed to the previous one. But again, it was about surveys, and originally the permit approval using a survey, showed 10 feet on it, and no one picked up on that until September of '25, when Dawn Green in the building department noticed that the pool and all of this is attached directly, so that it required the double setback. Again, I don't think this was self-created. According to the agent, the applicant, the homeowner, was very upset that this occurred. So I am going to approve this. I think it was not self-created by the owner. And with the screening, despite the neighbor coming next door and was concerned, not against this, but on his side of the property, I guess right now it's a driveway, so it shouldn't be impacting him in his home. So I am going to approve this application too.
Thank you. Member Mary?
Yes, thank you. I agree to approve this along with my fellow board members so far. Just a couple notes. This was done with an approved building permit, but that was, again, issued in error. Now, Jameson McWilliams did offer, she said they could not meet a 10-foot separation between the pool and these other, between the pool deck and these other structures that were approved. And I think she said that they were seeking maybe another way to separate it and tried to get an opinion if, maybe there's some way they could mitigate and separate, but no answer came. So she's, here before us for the relief. I actually, when I think about setbacks for pool decks, attached pool decks, I believe, one of the key purpose is to prevent, disturbance to your neighbor across the line, because pools tend to bring, noise and disturbance. But it's interesting because what's built behind this closer, to the neighbor is the pergola, an outdoor kitchen. It's a lot of area where, of course, there'll be activity, but it's still almost like a bit of a buffer, a natural buffer, between the activity right around the pool. And the pool is actually set back pretty far itself, from that neighboring property. So this one, almost gets closer to meeting some of the standards than what I said in the last one. And I don't know if it was confirmed, as long as pyramid is met on that pergola, then that's the only condition of my approval, but I'll be approving the application.
But it's just a question, is the pergola before us?
No.
Well, but it's the structure is, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but it would have to meet pyramid.
Yes, that
like,
I understand.
I mean, if it didn't meet pyramid, then they would have to, that wasn't.
It'd have to
Needing
come
another
back.
variance.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, I just wanted to note that because it came up at the hearing, and I agree that we don't want another mistake.
Oh, yeah. No,
Thank you.
All right, I'm sorry.
No, I'm
You
done.
good?
Thank you.
Thank you. I agree with all my board members. Again, this was a situation of a building permit being submitted incorrectly, but I also want, I'm going to also be approving this in its entirety, but I also want to indicate that the applicant did indicate that the slate patio located 4 feet from the southern lot line is to be removed. And I'd like that to be a condition of approval. And I also agree with Vice Chair's idea about screening to be a covenant.
I think it was already removed.
Yeah, it was already removed,
they
according to
did.
Jameson. She testified that it was removed
Yeah.
Okay.
prior to the hearing.
It wasn't clear that night, but.
Yeah. I wasn't sure either. I didn't watch this public hearing again. So are we good?
I guess the question then is about the screening. What do you guys think? I mean,
I would agree to the, like a covenant, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree
Yeah,
with that.
I would agree to, I agree to the
So
screening being
the
covered.
question is the length of it, right? So we
The le-
take the length of the building and we add 10 feet either way, and that's what the screening should be? Is that a fair assessment of what we can offer? Take a look at the building and make sure that,
in this
Like-
building,
yeah, right in there.
Right in there,
right in that
yeah.
area. If you go either side of the building
Mhm.
by, I'm just saying 10 feet, some number,
or the property line to
yeah,
Yeah.
something similar on the other end, yeah,
20 feet.
okay. So that's what we'd covenant, that the similar height of the vegetation that now exists? We can put a number on it, but,
Yeah.
8-foot screening, native screening, natural screening.
Yeah, there's a hedge there now.
I think that's good. That's about as much as we can do, I think.
Yeah, so I'll put a covenant in for, existing screening to remain and, maintain.
Mhm. Thank you. All right, now we're going to move on to Howard Morse, 24 Oyster Shores Road, East Hampton, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-92-9-24. Description is to construct a propane tank and 328 square foot swimming pool with associated pool fence and equipment, and to allow an existing gate, propane tank, and AC unit to remain on a property containing a tidal wetland. I'll read this into the record, but again, there's many revisions going on with this project, which I'm going to read into the record, so we're all clear on what we're talking about. Relief sought is a natural resource special permit pursuant to 255-420, variances from 255-430 and 255-1110 of the Town Code, and any other relief necessary. Variances of 97.1 feet, 49.7 feet are required to construct the pool fence and swimming pool 2.9 feet and 50.3 feet from wetlands, and variances of 100 feet, 58.9 feet, and 47.2 feet to allow a gate, AC unit, and propane tank to remain 0 feet, 41.1 foot, and 52.8 feet from wetlands where a 100-foot setback is required. Two variances of 9.5 and 8.4 are needed to construct the pool equipment and swimming pool 21.6 feet and 20.5 feet from the southern front yard lot line where 30 feet is required. One variances of 1.4 feet is required to allow the swimming pool deck to be 18.6 feet from the northern property line where 20 feet is required. Zoning district is a B residence X flood zone. AE elevation is 6, secret class is type 2. Okay. This hearing was held on May 19th. It was left open for additional information regarding revegetation. And Mr. Huber appeared before this board. Now, he submitted an excellent recap of what happened. And I'm going to refer to it now because it's very important that we include all this in our decision. Now, the revisions are depicted. We can even pull up that survey. Is that the survey? The new one, this one, Tyler? Do we have this one
Marked
up?
up?
The one that's marked up,
one,
this
yeah.
one. Okay, so he did submit a revised marked up copy, but obviously it's going to have to be, yes,
out.
that one. It's going to have to be resubmitted prior to the issuance of a building permit because of all the changes. So the applicant has agreed to eliminate the proposed gate near the property's southeast corner and will instead extend seaward on the property the existing 4-foot wire fence that currently runs along the northern property's southern boundary. And to be clear, that existing off-property gate is going to completely be removed.
Just that one, the gates on the pond side.
Yep.
South pond.
Exactly. Thank you. The applicant also agreed, and I'm happy about this because this is why we left the record open, because it's an HPOD district, this will definitely benefit the entire property. He's agreed to expand the proposed revegetation area and conservation easement area by 1,575 square feet, immediately seaward to the FEMA flood zone boundary. And he also depicted this on the marked up survey that he submitted to us. Now, this will increase the vegetated area from 7,039 square feet to approximately 8,614 square feet. Likewise, he's agreeing to a conservation easement area will increase from 10,884 square feet to approximately 12,459 square feet. Based on the another old revisions, the proposed pool fence is going to be relocated so that the relevant portion of it will run generally along the FEMA flood zone boundary, rather than the wetland boundary, flag number 3, which was originally proposed. So that's another revision he made. The design revision also eliminates the need for the originally requested 97-foot wetland setback associated with the proposed pool fence located near the wetland boundary flag. Now, in terms of what's before us, the applicant, the total relief the applicant is requesting from us now is the natural resource special permit approval for all existing and proposed improvements covered by the application, including, and this will be a condition of approval, the proposed revegetation and conservation easement areas, including the proposed 4-foot wide pervious pathway, the existing and proposed 4-foot wire fencing along the southern boundary seaward of the 100-foot wetland setback line, and the proposed pool fencing and temporary silt fencing. The proposed in-ground lap pool and related dry well, pool equipment enclosure, and underground LPG tank to be located as depicted on the survey in the property's rear yard fronting on Oyster Shores Road. The existing above-grade propane tank situated on the north side of the residence, and the existing above air conditioning condenser situated on the north side of the residence. The area variances are for the existing propane tank, the existing air conditioning, variance for the northern end of the proposed in-ground lap pool, 82-foot variance for the proposed relocated pool fencing to be situated now nearest the wetland boundary between flags number 1 and 2 on the abutting Solomon property to the north, a wetland setback variance for the proposed 4-foot wire fencing seaward, and a 1.4-foot northern side yard variance for the existing decking to be utilized as a proposed pool deck. An 8.4-foot southern front yard variance for the proposed lap pool will be situated 21.6 feet north of the property's southern boundary, and the pool equipment and enclosure to be situated 20 feet north of the southern boundary. Just want to make sure I have all this. Now, prior to the issuance of a building permit, I think we need a finalized updated survey finalizing the vegetation plan. And also an update, we also very much need an updated survey prior to the issuance of a building permit depicting the existing and proposed 4-foot wire fencing, the relocation of the proposed pool fencing, the enlarged revegetation and conservation easements with related square footage calculations, the revised pervious pathway extension landward toward the FEMA flood zone boundary, and an updated vegetation plan depicting the enlarged revegetation and conservation easement areas and a provided planting list. Now, what else? I think that there's been a very thoughtful approach to this property. And I think that the revisions that were made, I especially am happy about the additional revegetation being in a harbor protection overlay district. But I think there was a real concerted effort here to meet the standards in the code. Whether the grant of the variance will cause an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or create a detriment to nearby properties, I do not believe it will. Whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other method. I think in this particular case, the applicant has really, done that. He's really come back to us and has been very cooperative about what is in the best interest of this site in terms of the environment. Whether the requested variance is substantial, yes, in some cases, yes, but at the end of this project, I believe that the property will be more environmentally sound than it is right now. Will the grant of the variance have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood? I think not. Whether the difficulty causing the applicant to request an area variance was self-created. Well, that is what it is. It doesn't preclude us from approving or denying. So, and in terms of the environment, I think he did, Mr. Huber meticulously looked at alternatives regarding the property. And I do feel there's nothing in this application that's going to be a detriment to environmental protection. I'm going to be approving this application in its entirety based on an updated survey being submitted because there are a lot of changes. And I also want all of the conditions outlined in the technical analysis memo regarding prior to the issuance of a building permit, prior to the issuance of a CO, and additional recommended project conditions. Now, I don't see an updated survey
I can have that.
prior to the issuance of a building permit, but that's the one we would have to add because there are so many revisions on this property. So I am going to be approving it based on conditions of approval. So now Member Mary, would you like to go
I will
next?
take a shot, thank you. Let me go to my notes. Hold on a second, I just accidentally shut them down. Okay. So we're often, we look very closely at variances for pools because, as we often say, they're amenities, not necessities and such. And a 50% variance from wetlands is substantial. However, as I balance everything in this application, and I won't go through them all again, the chair just, went through the different changes and modifications that were made, responding to the TAM as, part of the what we requested in the public hearing. Those are important. I'll get further into those, but, the overall development on this property is still fairly modest, right? This is a fairly moderate-sized pool. I think it's not that deep. And, it's not adding other new things except for pool equipment, basically. So, and I'll talk about pool fence in a second. And so I do find that the mitigation, and let me back up, it's not clear to me that a pool this size, even though it's a 50% variance, would necessarily have a large detrimental impact to 3 Mile Harbor. And of course, this is a very sensitive part of 3 Mile Harbor, as we know. So I'm looking at this, scrutinizing this application very, very closely. But of course, this property it has pre-existing, non-conforming, huge clearing, right, relative to the allowable in H-Pod. And although I would love to see it get even closer, I'd love it to be below 15,000 square feet compared to the 10,400 max that's allowed, it still is pre-existing non-conforming, and there's a nexus here definitely with this pool and the standards to get this much. I don't know there's a nexus to get it back into compliance, probably not. And so I think the way it's been done and the way it's, that extra re-veg sort of covers, really gets even closer to the location of the pool. So I do believe this meets the standards for the, and one other thing, it did come up about an upgraded septic. I mean, that would have put this way over the top and would be important to the environmental conditions of 3 Mile Harbor, but I don't think we felt in the hearing, I'll be interested to see what other board members think, that there was a nexus to that. Obviously, if there's any further development on this property, right, that would, that would come into play. So I was a little disappointed by that, but still, they made a very good effort here. So between, and I also just want to note, I think the planner hadn't talked about what happened on the property. Oh, and by the way, that's one of the reasons I'm going to approve this pool, because a very similar thing was approved, right, not that long ago, right, on the neighboring property. But one thing I just want to say with respect to the re-veg, I think Morgan had said, this was Morgan's, right? Yeah, Morgan had said that next door, the revegetation was being, quote, maintained, but not naturalized. And so we're gonna wanna make sure somehow, as much as we can in the conditions, that whatever is revegetated, obviously it's gonna be approved by the planning department as a condition of approval, but something, we have to make sure that it really does naturalize and not just, be sort of landscaped, if you will. So all in, I believe this meets the NRSP standards, given the mitigation, the serious mitigation, and I believe that, the variances for the deck, because the existing deck becomes now a pool deck, and the pool equipment enclosure, I'm going to approve those as well. I generally would love to, see these be in more conforming locations, but actually I don't know that there is, that you can meet the full setbacks for required setbacks just because of how constrained, and they're, close to the house, and I'm not going to make them take out another 15 feet of what's left of their deck because they're already taking out some of the deck. So all in, I am approving this application in full. One question I do have, though, I just want to make sure I'm clear on where the new pool fence is, because I still, I'm looking at this marked up copy. So I'm assuming that the pool fence is going to be in the area that's shown on the
FEMA zone.
Right, definitely above the FEMA zone, but I guess it's going to end sort of where the current proposed silt fence.
Proposed pool fence to be located along FEMA zone
Right,
boundary to diagonally to northern property boundary.
so
So
to me, I would be approving I would like to approve a pool fence that actually winds up being what that silt fence is. I would rather not enclose more of the property, and I think it makes sense that a pool fence can be close to the fence. So that's important for me in my approval.
So if I could just
Member Burko?
chime in
You're next.
early,
I
because,
just want to make sure she was finished.
Yes, I'm sorry.
yeah, no,
Over to you.
it's, I agree with everything that both parties said. I do think the mitigation was great, enough to make it meet the NRSP standards for the overall project. I think we had brought up a question about septic, but as we said, that this pool, it's going to be like 8 feet wide and 3 feet deep didn't rise to the occasion. I am approving this entire application. However, what I haven't figured out is exactly where this pool fence is going. He's got it marked from flag number 3 originally, where it was 2.9 feet away. And then he moved it here between flag 2 and 1 at 17.5 feet, right, written in red. But I don't understand where it goes from there. It doesn't make sense to me necessarily to have it go along the FEMA zone. It has to go around the pool somewhere, and I don't see where that is. So help me out with that. So I was thinking that the pool fence could be moved in closer to where the pool is going to be located. And I'm just trying to get a visual on how this pool fence is going around the pool that it's made to protect. Which I don't see. And along the FEMA zone doesn't do that.
Right.
So I thought it could move farther in, actually, to increase the setback from the wetland flags to the north, and then come down somewhere like where the deck starts, perhaps. But I still don't see how it gets to be a square fence around the pool. And that was my one concern in a variance, because it's still a huge variance from the new location.
Vice Chair?
Yeah, well, I think the fence is a question we can talk about. I'll start by saying, when you visit this site, you're struck by two things. One is how amazingly beautiful the spot is. And number two was that it was lawn cleared all the way down to the wetlands. So your first reaction is something would have to be done about that. And I think this application did something about that. So they came in to us with a proposal of 7,039 square feet of re-veg that's been discussed by 3 board members before me. That increased by another 1,575 square feet, so that we wind up getting something in the range of 8,600 square feet of re-veg. That's really the key to most of the discussion here, that area, that buffer that's now going to be provided with only a walkway passing through is going to be very significant and a major change. Now, the other accommodations that were made by the applicant, removing the gate was a concern of ours. What's the gate about? They immediately took it out. Fine, we don't have to worry about that as much in terms of access. And we thought other people might use the dock and boats, all these things we talked about. But once it's out, that's a help for us in trying to determine what we're doing with this one. And I think that the pool is not excessive in size. It was mentioned by Member Meering. It's 3 foot deep. It's 8 by whatever that is, 32 feet. And it's an interesting concept of how to move forward, get a feature you really want to see on a property, and what can we do to give us the maximum amount of mitigation. I think the mitigation here is significant. I think what we get back when we're done is, yes, we have a pool that we give up, and we very careful about pools on water sides of all structures, but the mitigation here is significant in terms of the vegetation, and that's basically what we're looking to do, is to protect the harbor. Are we making a major, or at least a large environmental improvement on this property? I think we are. I think it was mentioned also by Member Meering, and it was mentioned by the planner that night, Morgan, that the house immediately to the north had approvals for a pool at approximately the same location. There was questions about whether or not that applicant or that individual had kept up with the promise to allow it to naturalize. It looked as if it was being cultured, I think she said, or maintained, which meant that they were doing some weeding and trimming, and it didn't go back to its native state. But in this one here, we're going to assume that's going to happen. We're getting a large gift in terms of the mitigation offered in terms of the re-veg. I'm not bothered by it. The question of defining where the fence goes is one that can continue as a mutual conversation. But I look at this and I thought this was a net positive, particularly the protection of the harbor, which seemed to me to be first and foremost the condition I would be looking for when I visited the site. So along with my fellow board members, I'm willing to approve this application in its entirety.
Thank you. Member Kiley?
Well, I agree with my fellow board members. this property is not developed nearly as much as its neighbors to the north. This body of water is pretty important, and the hot summer day, the tidal flush hour there is not fantastic. So any mitigation that can happen through revegetation to slow storm water or any other water into that area is a plus. The application was well presented, so I have no problem approving this application.
Thank you. So now let's talk about the pool fence.
Okay, I have one other to put in the conversation on the pool fence. Is it, since it's going up against the FEMA line, and now that triangle of extra vegetation, it says that's also part of the scenic easement. So right now, is the pool fence going to be, does there have to be a separation between the fence and the
No.
conservation easement? No?
The code specifically exempts full fencing from easements, setbacks.
Oh, okay, I forgot. Thank you, sorry. So now, yeah.
I think that's the fence line.
What's the red line?
That's what I just put in.
Oh, use that. Oh,
I mean, I had to connect it over here, but I'm pretty sure there's fencing here and here already.
Where?
So I think they're just connecting it
Hmm.
all together.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Don't see it. I
Yeah.
mean, I
See
see
the
silk-
red, you're talking about the red line on that survey that goes
You can
around?
Sort of, you can see this here and this here. This is a wire fence that's already there. I think this circle line is the fence that they're proposing.
Yep,
Where?
And I know there's a fence over here. I've been to the property.
yeah, there is.
I'm sorry.
I didn't show you that mean.
I mean, it says, this here is the fence line as, I mean, the silt fence is the S. The fence they're proposing is O's. You can sort of see it running along here, which is under the black line now, but
Sorry. Can I
Isn't
go
that
up
the
and?
silk fence
This is
though,
over here.
Tyler? You're pointing at?
The one with the squares is the.
yeah, I mean, you can look at it here. You can see the
Yeah.
squares. And then it just sort of runs into the existing, that's the square one there.
Closer, because I can't see it all, what it's focusing. Okay.
Sure.
Up here, maybe they're running it in.
Outline what he's actually proposing?
This is the original survey.
Right, yeah.
So that,
Yeah.
this is what the original, that's the original. So the
Yeah.
squares.
Oh, it's just gonna run
It's
straight.
gonna run straight.
So instead of doing this, they're gonna
But where does
cut
it
it.
attach to?
cut it across.
I think there's an already existing fencing.
But they're gonna put this one in here too.
It's hard to see because it's on the property line.
Yeah.
Okay, I was looking at the, oh, come on,
Yeah.
see, the silk
There's
fence
existing
line.
fencing here, which I'm assuming they're just tying into.
Yeah. The silt fence is inside.
Yeah.
The silt fence is just for construction.
That's on this survey they're looking
So
at.
what is being
They're looking
proposed?
at this one.
Side by it's
Yeah, probably just gonna
They're looking at this one.
not, for a fence, it's pretty minimal. Not
The
digging,
square,
you
he
know,
said square.
Yeah.
This was the one.
close to the ground, yeah.
I guess it went, I don't know, but, so,
Yeah, that's it. It doesn't end.
Back to the corner of the house.
Mm-hmm.
so for me, let's do where the silk fence ends. And it gives them plenty of room but doesn't over block the property for wildlife and things.
So how are we moving forward?
I mean, I recommend using the
Because I don't
silk
have a
fence.
problem with what's been proposed, but
Okay.
myself, actually.
I mean, I would like to see it come down into the property, and down to the, like the edge of the house around.
So how does the rest of the board feel on
Well,
what's
well,
being
it
proposed?
it does meet the house in both corners at this
Mhm.
point. We know there's a gate up on the
Yep.
northwest corner.
Oh,
It
now I
looks like
see
in the
it.
southeast corner is where it comes back and touches the house.
There's
So we're
already
taking
fencing
from
there.
the southeast corner out towards the property line, back towards what was the original fence, and then it's following the new diagonal for the
Right.
additional
Mhm.
area inside the FEMA.
Oh, so I see on this, on the bottom side where it attaches up around the front of the house where it says plant and gate, is that where it's going back into the house?
I think it's further east. I think it's on that southeast corner. Is that right?
All the way up here?
What, that one,
Attaching, is the gate, is the fence attaching in the southeast corner of the,
I think,
Not if it's
I
not
think the
if it's-
proposed fence comes in here.
It comes in further up. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's an existing fence right there. I don't know if they're preventing to abandon that or. I don't know.
Or it's just a pool, maybe it's like,
Yeah, just a 4-foot wire fence, so maybe it doesn't qualify. I don't know. I don't know the details.
Bring that down. A little more south and just come straight down? Get into the fence?
What does the board think?
So for me,
I don't see it going across the.
I'm staying in the same place. I think,
Okay with
Yeah.
what's being proposed.
Yeah, I actually had looked at the fence and I didn't have a complaint about it. I understand what the conversation is, but I don't have a real problem with what it's doing now. What I'm judging here, what I see.
Right, Member Carly, how do you feel?
I'm fine with that. You know, the re-veg is the big thing for me, so
Okay.
that's just fine.
Member Mary?
yeah, I mean, I understand what you're all saying. To me, using that line where the silt fence is makes the best sense. It gives them, like I said, it gives them room all around the pool on that side of the house. And so I just think that's the natural place and the best place for it to stop. And then it leaves the rest of the property open. So that's where I am, but that's, other people feel differently. It's fine. I'm only one person.
So it sounds like we have a 3-2 on what's being proposed.
basically that's okay.
Yeah, for the three of us it is.
Okay, so I'll deny the pool fence variance.
Okay.
Everything else.
So then Terry's going to deny the pool fence
Variance.
variance. Member Marion, do you feel that way too?
No,
Okay.
I mean, there's no reason to because I don't need to make a.
I mean, I'm okay with all the other variances that
Okay.
we discussed and the NRSP and
Right.
mitigation.
I just want to be
There's a
clear.
lot going on.
I just want to be clear that there's no fencing at all south of the FEMA line, right?
That's right. That's right.
Okay, that's
According
actually
to this, there is
very
none.
key, right? Like that has to all be open for wildlife and
Mhm.
blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Are we good, council? You?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll move on to 65 Dunes Lane LLC. 65 Dunes Lane, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-129-2-21. Description is to allow approximately 400 square feet of pool decking to remain. Reconstruct existing first and second story decking, construct 400 square feet of new second story decking, demolition and construction of a portion of the residence resulting in a decrease in GFA and a replacement of windows and doors on a parcel of land containing barrier dunes, beach vegetation, and beaches. Relief sought is a natural resource special permit pursuant to 255-420, variances from 255-440, and any other necessary relief. The following variances from the primary dune crest are required. 75-foot variance is required to allow the enlarged pool deck to remain 25 feet. A 61-foot variance is required to reconstruct the first and second story decking, 41 feet, and a 6-foot variance is required to construct the closest of the additions 94 feet from the dune crest, where a 100-foot setback is required. Zoning district is A residential VE flood zone, elevation 18 feet, secret class type 2. Member Marion, would you like to begin the deliberation?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the public hearing was held on May 19th, and the applicant was represented by Joel Halsey and Richard Whalen. And the application was well presented by the both of them. The planning board was represented by Brian Frank and his prepared TAM. No members of the public offered comments into the record at the hearing, either in person or in writing. And the survey we relied upon is dated November 13th, 2025, which included Brian Frank's kind of highlighting, marking up of what had been added to the rear pool deck by the prior owner of the property that was done without proper review or permits at the time that we're now being asked to legalize. And I also want to note the house is already compliant with VE, I think it's a VE 17 flood zone. And the house itself, as I understand it, meets the setback from the, oh, sorry, scratch that, sorry. Okay, so there are three main parts to this application. There's the legalization. As mentioned, it's a modest amount of square feet of that extra pool deck that was done by a prior owner sometime between 2010 and 2013, and that requires a 75-foot variance, as has been said, from the primary dune crest. The second part is reconstruction, mostly in place and in kind, of that rear first and second story decking. That's a 61% variance, but again, it's mostly in place and in kind. There's just some like squaring off, but net, there's really no expansion. And then the third part is the demolition, reconfiguration, and addition of structures on the landward side of the house, almost all of which is outside of the dune crest setback requirement. So with respect to my decision on these three different elements relative to the standards, so I'm going to approve the 75-foot variance to legalize and allow that extra square footage of deck expansion that had been done on the southern side. Though the variance is, of course, numerically very substantial, it is a relatively modest amount of decking that has been in place, again, since let's see, from 2010 or 2013. And so far, I don't think anyone can see that it has created any detriment to the protected natural features. I agree that actually by having it squared off that way does improve some of the safety and mobility around the pool. And most importantly, the establishment of a major scenic easement hugely offsets, I believe, the relief requested for this, to legalize this very modest amount, although very close to a dune crest. So I'm going to be approving that variance. I believe it meets the variance standards as well as the NRSP standards for the reasons that I've said. I'm also going to approve the 61-foot variance and the NRSP for the reconstruction of the rear decking. Again, mathematically substantial, but de minimis work done, to be done, because those decks have been in that place, again, I believe, for a very long time. The footprint's not increasing, and I don't see how there would be any incremental detriment or problem to the natural feature. And actually, even the way they're positioned, the work itself, I don't think will cause, any disruption, to the natural resources. I'm also going to approve for the stuff in the front, the one very not substantial 6-foot variance for one of the changes on the front side of the house. So most all of the changes, in addition, on the front of the house are landward. Obviously, they're on the landward side, nearly entirely out of the dune setback jurisdiction. They're also landward of the CHA line. The house is, as said, already compliant with FEMA. The changes they are making create no material change to GFA or even coverages, and there's no additional clearing required, as the front of the house where these changes will be rearranged and made are already somewhat disturbed. And so for all these reasons, I'm approving the application in its entirety. I did have a question. We didn't talk about it, but based on the file, it looks like they're upgrading the septic system, but we never talked about it or anything. So that would only be, I'm not saying it's necessary, but I couldn't tell. But otherwise, another beautiful place to have visited as a member of this board.
Thank you. Member Berger.
Okay. Well, I too am approving the entire application for all the reasons already mentioned. 75-foot for the enlarged pool deck that has existed without issue to date. And as Member Mearing mentioned, that the rationale to be able to get a very extensive scenic easement over this property. So that's a big win. IA system that does look like it's being done. And also improving the 61-foot for the first and story decking for the same reasons. It's pretty much over what's already there, going to be redone slightly. And the new addition in the front is only 6 foot to construct the closest portion of it, and then the rest of it is outside of variance territory. So the current, actually at the end of this project where they're taking a lower level and they're putting in a detached garage, at the end of all of this, the GFA is actually going to be lower than it was. Part of that is because town code has changed and how it's looked at, but it's still a net reduction slightly. And I think it meets all the NRSP standards. The scenic easement that's provided and the pathway which would be allowed is there today. And the scenic easement is a tremendous plus for the environmental conditions and preserving this property going forward into perpetuity. So I too think it meets all the standards, and I'm approving the whole thing.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with my fellow board members. I think that what we saw was that some work is being done where previous work had been. I think that was mentioned by Member Mearing, the squaring off of the deck made logical sense because there was a certain, you could see it must have been awkward trying to get around that pool as it was. I think that the comment from the planner was that a small amount of work required a very large variance. It did require a large variance, but I didn't think this was creating anything that was more than a slight additional intrusion into the setback. Of course, the conservation easement is the major thing here. We're getting an easement over the property, which is a plus. I think that the decrease in the GFA, how often do we see some come in for improvement? A decrease in GFA. And I think we also had a decrease in the amount of existing deck goes from 2267 to 2195, 75 feet. But still, it wasn't as if they were looking for a great deal more. I think there's something to be said for the fact that there seemed to be, at this point anyway, fairly good stewards of the property. We didn't go in and see property here that was been mismanaged in some way, or there's large storage areas cut out of dune land. I think that's important. I think the area from where the construction is going to happen to the ocean is absolutely stunning, as was mentioned, and has to be preserved. And I think the easement helps us in that direction. Let me see if there's anything else I just want to mention. I think that the work done on the front of the offside, the landward side, the garage, the addition in the front of the house were things that seemed a very reasonable request. I think there's anything else I want to mention here. The scenic easement, again, is the major thing. But they did agree to TAM, any suggested TAM conditions. And I think it was well presented, well thought out. And it seems as, and by the way, this is a house that's been around for a significant amount of time. So it's fairly stable. It was pointed out in terms of stability that the house was built on pilings, which if there were to be some large event that might endanger other buildings along the way, this one has a little better chance. So for all those reasons and agreeing with my board members, I'm going to approve this in its entirety.
Thank you. Member Kylie?
I agree. I think the application was well presented. The requests are fair and reasonable, and the scenic easement is definitely, a bonus. So I approve it in its entirety.
Thank you. I'm now have all the same notes as everybody else. So I'm not going to repeat, but I think this was a very well thought out project. I mean, how many times do we see a house getting smaller? And I'm going to be approving it in its entirety. Okay. Next application is Mao Trust, 96 Marine Boulevard in Amagansett. Description is to construct an 828 square foot second-story addition with a roof deck, covered porch, and an IA sanitary system, and to allow an existing 118 square foot deck extension with stairs, bin, generator, fence, and AC unit to remain on a lot containing a wetland. Relief sought is a natural resource special permit pursuant to 255-420 and variances from 255-430, 255-1110, 255-1172D of the Town Code, and any other relief necessary. Variances of 52 feet, 52.5 feet, 54.1 feet, and 28.8 feet are required to allow the second-story addition, roof deck, and front porch to be located 47.5 feet, 45.9 feet, and 71.2 feet respectively from wetlands, and variances of 93.4 feet, 67.3, 50, 37.3, 32, to allow a split rail fence, expanded deck with stairs, generator, bin, and AC unit to remain 6.6 feet, 32.7 feet, 50 feet, 62.7 feet, and 68 feet from wetlands where a 100-foot setback is required. Three variances of 12.2 feet, 12.5, and 12.7 are needed to allow the AC unit, bin, and generator to remain 17.8 feet, 17.5 feet, and 17.3 feet from the western front yard lot line where 30 feet is required. One variance is required to allow the residents to extend 1 foot beyond the relative height pyramid restriction along the southern front property line. Zoning district is B Residence AE flood zone, elevation 16, secret class is type 2. Member Maring, would you like to begin our deliberation?
Yes, thank you. The public hearing was held on March 31, 2026, way back when it was cold out. The applicant was represented by Lori Wiltshire of Land Planning Services. Mr. Mayo spoke on his own behalf at the hearing. He addressed the purpose of, or the benefit they were trying to accomplish. No comments were submitted into the hearing record from members of the public. The planning department was represented by Morgan Slater. During the hearing, we worked off a George Walbridge survey dated March 9th, 2026, and that had updated the prior March 5th, 2025 survey that showed the septic system being shifted a few more feet towards the eastern property line. So what had come in originally in the application was for the septic to be 20.6 from the wetlands, and it was shifted to 29.8 feet from the wetlands, and that is an upgraded IA system. Also in the file, I want to note there was an engineer's letter. I don't know if we talked about it at the public hearing, but it's in the file, so I want to note it, dated February 5th, 2026 from Butchner Engineering, and it assesses the existing house foundation, quote, foundation and property soils profile, and his their assessment was that foundation and property soils profile can support a second floor with, quote, common reinforcement that should be expected. And this was an important opinion because this house was built in 1960, and I believe this is the original foundation. At the time of the hearing, we asked the applicant to still explore alternative options for the siting of the septic system. The TAM made clear that this septic system, while it's an improvement, obviously the type of is a great improvement relative to the cesspool, still urged us and the applicant to consider getting the septic system in, I guess, what could be considered the most optimal, or maximizing the wetland setback. So we had that discussion, and we left the record open for that consideration. And Ms. Wiltshire said they would go back and look at its ability to perhaps be positioned much further south on that eastern side of the property. Per that, we received into the record a follow-up memo dated April 24th, 2026 from the agent, with also a letter attached from the applicant, which did basically identify an alternative position further south, and significantly better distance to the wetlands. However, that would require that the expansion trench be placed on the south side of the property, currently where there's this drainage system being proposed. So the applicant did write a letter saying that he declines wanting to make that change to optimize the septic system position relative to the wetlands, because they don't want to clear more area. They want to keep whatever their privacy from the vegetation, and they don't want to change things beyond where they are. So I appreciate that. It's not clear to me, however, how much of the vegetation on the property is actually native to the area as opposed to ornamental or other. And in addition, the right-of-way on the southern side of the property on Marine, that right-of-way is densely vegetated, and that would not be disturbed anyway. So, but I'll come back to this in my deliberation. With respect to proposed mitigation, the applicant has offered to create a 1,056 foot scenic easement and a 5-foot vegetated buffer around that to try and protect the wetlands that are sort of on the northwest corner of the property. We had a lot of discussion about the bamboo and the invasive bamboo. They talked about trying to control it. They're not going to take it out within the wetland, because that would be a whole other process, and I think which would require SECRA. But they talk about using a root barrier outside of the wetland to begin to try and control. Okay, the full lot area is materially undersized, pre-existing, non-conforming to zoning minimum. Specifically, it's 47% smaller than the minimum 20,000 lot area of a B residence zone. So just want to note the property parcel size X the wetland is only 9,921 feet. So this is a constrained lot with 2 front yards, and most of the lot area, if not all of it, is in jurisdiction of the wetland on the north and the northwest corner. However, these constraints are not unique to many other undersized lots in this neighborhood. And thus, when I think about, what could be approved, I also have to be thinking about the context of the precedent that it could set broadly for other applications to come that have a lot of these same constraints. So the application, as we know, requires 12 variances, 8 of which relate to wetland setbacks. The others are area variances. All in, Ms. Wiltshire describes, or maybe it was Mr. Mayo who described what they're going to do as, quote, quite modest. And I understand that the footprint of the house is not being enlarged, but this is a very substantial expansion of development on the property. Remember, this cottage started out as 1,040 square feet. It was expanded 59% to the current GFA, which is 1656, and now they were proposing to add another 820 square feet, or 50%, which will take the house up just 4% below the max GFA under the formula of the old code they're grandfathered under, and it takes them to the maximum that they'd be allowed to do relative to expanding non-conforming structures at that 50%. As the TAM says, quote, the 50% cap limit on further expansion of a house that is non-conforming to wetland setback, quote, is not a guaranteed right to expansion. So the house currently does not conform with FEMA standards, significantly doesn't conform. Even though it's being expanded 50%, I guess the building inspector rendered a letter that said the value increase will only be 40%, and therefore the building department has judged this to not require FEMA compliance. If they did, they would have to raise the house another 8 feet. The wetlands in this part of the town, this wetland was identified in 1993 And it was noted that this wetland continues to expand. So it's, which is important in the neighborhood to see these wetlands continue to do what they need to do naturally, because it is important flood mitigation and it's important, for environmental concerns. So let me get to the deliberation relative to the variances. So the variances, hold on, I just got myself a little twisted here. So the variances I'm going to approve are the front porch variance, which will be 20, it's a 28.8 foot variance. It's on the south side of the house. It's not a large structure or a substantial variance. I'm approving the split rail fence, which needs a 93.4 variance from wetland, but I think that split rail's been there for a long time, and I actually don't see a split rail fence as having any real detrimental impact to the wetland. I'm going to approve the variance requested. So they had expanded their rear deck without a permit, so they need a variance of 67.3 from the wetlands, which is substantial. To legalize it. It's large, but it's only 118 square feet that was added, and it would seem to make sense. That deck was a little bit tight on the back, so I don't believe that it will create much disturbance to the natural feature. The next three items require very substantial variances, but I'm going to approve them. The generator, the AC unit, and what was the third one? Generator, AC unit, and the bin. So they're significant. They need wetland variances as well as side yard setback variances. And yeah, I do believe they possibly could be moved to the eastern side of the house, but I don't think these are causing much in the way of harm, either environmentally or even necessarily to the character. That area where they're sitting is very well screened. So I'm approving all of that. The variances, though, that after assessing everything, including that there's an upgraded sanitary system, that they're creating a modest size buffer and re-veg around the wetland. I am denying the 52.5 foot variance for the second story addition and the 54.3 variance for the roof deck, as well as the variance request for a pyramid variance for the second story that runs along the entire width of the southern property line. The application, so I find that granting these variances, let me start again. These are very substantial variances on a constrained lot. The benefit that Mr. Mayo told us is a compelling one. He's got aging parents. He wants to take one, expand the bedrooms on the first floor. He wants to add some bedrooms to offset the one he's taking out on the bottom floor and then add one more. And but I do believe that is a benefit that could be achieved by alternative or smaller designs. And this really this is a maximum increase of expansion, then combined with the roof deck also, which I'll talk about, it does not, to me, meet the standards of the variances or the NRSP. I do believe that the increase in the size of the house will create an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood. It could also create detriment to neighboring properties. It's the adding a full roof deck also that requires a pyramid variance does not meet the standards. Again, they could have had a roof deck and second story that didn't need that pyramid variance and still have pretty much all the benefit they want. The roof deck will likely cause a loss of privacy, which is a detriment to the neighbors. And the benefits sought by the applicant, as I mentioned, could be achieved feasible with the smaller size of development. The requested area variances are very substantial. The grant of the variance, I do believe, will have an adverse impact on the environmental conditions, and the difficulty causing the applicant, well, it's not self-created because the whole house, if you're going to expand the house, is in jurisdiction. However, the size of the variances and the degree of the development is a self-created issue. So for that reason, I'm going to deny the second story and the deck. I do think there could have been a better application that still would have gotten them the benefit, but better meeting the standards and not putting such an intense level of development on this very fragile lot. Sorry to, this is
Thank
a
you.
tougher one for me.
Member Berger?
Okay. Where I should start, okay. Well, there's a lot of things on this application, as we already know, this constrained lot, substandard. I took this in, well, a couple of different parts. There was, what I had is existing stuff, which included the split rail fence, the expanded deck, the generator, the in that I left off my list here, I guess, AC unit, which required variances. And they're here already. They don't seem to have, generated any problem. And I don't see, in looking at moving those to the east side with an IA system going in, I'm not sure that they could go over there either. So I was leaning toward approving those, including the split rail fence, which is 93.4 feet of a variance. Then new things going in, we have 52.5 variance, 5-foot variance for the second story addition to be from the wetlands, and 54.1 for the roof deck, and 28.8 for the front porch. And then, of course, in addition to the dimensional variances, there is the wetland variances, is the pyramid variance of 1 foot for the second floor addition and roof deck. I think on this application, I am denying all the new things, including the front porch on these, the variances, and the pyramid variance. I think we know that the applicants they have 4 bedrooms today. They were going to move a bedroom from the second floor and add it to the third floor, the second floor rather, and end up with a 5-bedroom house. However, I believe there are alternate designs in terms of an NRSP. I think there are smaller structures that could be added on this house, specifically for the second floor addition and the roof deck. Aside from the bedrooms, they were adding other general living space that is included in this 828 feet of expansion. And I think it does not meet I think they don't meet the variance standards. I think they don't meet the NRSP standards of 255, 551. I know there's some mitigation here with the IA system. I actually have a problem where I don't like the offer of a scenic easement that has bamboo in it. So I don't know how I even just that portion of it, or I guess it would relate to NRSP standards. I don't see that that's an improvement necessarily at all for this property, to have bamboo inside the scenic easement. So overall, I am only approving variance-wise and I guess NRSP, since they haven't currently cause any issue. The existing items that are in the house, and I'm denying the rest of the application and denying the NRSP for it, and including, I'm not sure how to do that, to say denying the scenic easement because of the bamboo that will be located in it, aside from the others mitigation of the IA system. I guess that's not enough mitigation for me to this application.
Thank you. Vice Chair?
Yeah. As was said by Member Berger, there's a lot going on here for us to look at. Everybody's, two members now weighed in on the various, and I have a couple of comments. It is a 10,000 square foot constrained lot, wetlands bridging right onto the rear of the property. The building that's proposed is mostly over existing footprint, which is a positive. They've agreed to many of the recommendations in the TAM. The scenic easement, however, I agree with Member Berger here. It's less effective in this location. There wouldn't be a lot of others. There is the fact that there is an invasive species in there that's going to continue to grow and to spread and to be very hard to eradicate. But nonetheless, I'm still happy to get a scenic easement. I just don't think it adds for a lot in terms of mitigation here. The Duneland character was mentioned should be restored, and whatever we get for a replanting plan should have some aspect of that, and we'd leave that to the planners, but to say that what comes in shows that there is a certain respect for what was originally there. There was the whole comment about the building department deciding this was not 50% worth of work. Had it been, it would have triggered a number of things, but one of them would have been to make it FEMA compliant. And remember, as Jane said, I'm sorry, Jane, I was reading it at the same time. It's going from 10.2 to 18 feet. So, it would have gone to that. But the fact there is no increase in the footprint. There were a couple of other things here. I thought that if I'm going to go down and look at the variances, the rear deck variance, the generator, the AC, the bin, and the second story addition, I am going to approve. I'm not going to approve the roof deck or the split rail, and the split rail fence, the roof deck or the pyramid. I think that the pyramid, by the way, could have been solved in front of us by moving it a foot back. It's a 45. It's 1 foot high, 1 foot back would have done it. But beyond that, I think the fact that this is a very tight lot and an area that you're suddenly adding a roof deck at an elevation here, that I think the comment that it would affect the privacy of others around them, I think is a very real concern. The character of the neighborhood and the sanity of the neighbors, but the continuing having a certain constancy here. What this applicant came in front of us for was to accommodate a larger house for his increased family needs. He spoke and said how it was important to create space for his parents, who've always enjoyed it, but now have less ability to get to a second floor. And they needed to expand out to invite other family members in. I am both sympathetic to that, and my decision-making here reflects that. I'm not 100% sure. I think that the second floor deck is necessary. Member Meering did say there might have been alternatives that weren't explored, but I am going to approve this application except for the roof deck and the obviously accompanying glass rail. Glass rails have become an issue with us. We still have to be sensitive from the pyramid. They do count. This one would have to have been moved, but beyond that, I don't want to approve the roof deck, so the glass rail is going to be a moot point for me. So that's where I stand. I'm going to approve the variances that were requested for the ones I've already mentioned: the rear deck variance, the generator, the AC, the bin, the second story addition, and the split rail fence. But I'm going to deny the roof deck and the pyramid for the rail.
Member Kiley?
Thank you. Along the same lines as Member Johan, it is a small constrained lot. It doesn't matter what direction you go, you are in violation of something. So the fact that the work is going to be done in the existing footprint is a benefit. So the front porch, the fence, the rear deck, and the generator, the AC unit are okay with me. The second story is fine, but yeah, the roof deck, in looking at that neighborhood, you're so close to one another, I think. And also a no on the pyramid variance.
Thank you. I actually agree with my vice chair and member Kylie. I too am going to be denying the roof deck and the pyramid. I think that the majority of the work is adding the second story, and much of the proposed work is situated over already existing improvements. The footprint of the house is not going to increase. They're not really proposing any change to the size of the footprint or the existing foundation. They're seeking a modest expansion of a second floor, which already exists over a portion of the home. The proposed porch is landward of the wetlands. The bin, the AC unit, the generator, I don't think cause any detriment to the wetlands. So I will be approving everything except the roof deck and the pyramid.
So do we want the scenic easement or
Yes,
Yes.
I want the scenic easement?
absolutely.
And the,
I
and
do.
and the
They
veg,
offered
and the
it,
re-veg
so- and the
buffer.
re-veg, yeah. All of the,
All the conditions.
all the conditions that have been listed in Lori's April 24th letter should be incorporated. And all of the TAM recommendations.
Okay, so basically, the existing stuff is approved.
It sounds like,
Everything's approved except for the roof deck and the
Pyramid.
pyramid variance. But
correct.
but
Do you-
not, but you three approved all that, and then they approved some of the stuff, but not
Well,
not
well,
the second floor
the roof
addition.
deck and the pyramid, we all denied.
Yeah.
All five of us.
Right.
I'm denying the second story addition also,
Yes, and
Yeah.
I believe Jade is.
and the front.
So that's a 3-2 for approval,
Yeah, okay.
right? Yeah.
I got it too if you need it.
What?
I got it if you need it too.
Okay, all right, awesome, thank you.
All righty,
Okay, very good. Okay, moving right along.
we're on number 7.
Marion Ladier, 83 Cliff Road, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-174-2-6. Description is to construct a 1,083 square feet of first and second story additions, 588 square feet, foot attached garage, driveway, and IA sanitary system on a lot containing dune land and beach vegetation. A natural resource special permit is being sought pursuant to 255.20 of the East Hampton Town Code. The zoning district is B Residence X flood zone, 0.2 annual chance flood hazard area. Secret class is type 2. Member Maring, would you like to begin?
Yes, I would, thank you. So this property is located on the north side of Cliff Road, and this is an area of Beach Hampton that is greatly characterized by dunes, dune land topography, and some very pristine dune land and almost rare dune land vegetation. For that as backdrop. I note that the lot size at 19,599 square feet makes this among the very small minority of all lots in the entirety of Beach Hampton that comes close to meeting the minimum for the B residence zone of 20,000. Morgan Slater represented the planning board, and the TAM was dated January 29th. The applicant was represented by Mr. David Berridge, who's the architect on the project, and he noted, you good? Okay. He noted that he was involved with this house with the previous owners like 20 years ago. He didn't make a formal presentation about the project really, nor did he discuss the project with respect to the NRSP standards. No plan was presented in the application or in the record to achieve the revegetation and renaturalization of the significant swath of dune land that has been despoiled over the years by the applicant in contravention to a prior zoning board's approvals. Though he did say simply that he will, quote, basically agree to whatever we, the board, feel is correct to take it back to the proper dune environment. I also want to note that there were questions raised at the meeting if the required CNRs that were required back in the I think it's a condition of the administrative permit in 2008 from the zoning board. Mr. Berich stated that they were, and I believe the board at the time asked for something to confirm that. I actually don't know if we received that into the record of verification that they were properly forwarded, but he did say under oath that they had been. The survey we relied upon in the public hearing was the Saskis survey dated June 12th, 2025. I want to note that it was established during the public hearing that this survey does not fully or accurately represent the entirety of the plans, especially with respect to the size and position of the driveway. And moreover, obviously we have clearing numbers that do not reflect any of the necessary revegetation, restoration, renaturalization of the property. No members of the public offered comments to the record. And even though the rear extension could have pretty direct impact on the neighbor to the west, there was no comment on that. So this application brings us a fairly substantial level of development on this lot, an increase of 48% in GFA between the two-story addition on the rear, north side, and one-story addition that wraps around from the north to the eastern side of the house. This brings the GFA right up to the top of the maximum allowable under the prior code that we were told they are grandfathered for. In addition, they want to add a 550 square foot attached garage. All in, building coverage is proposed to be expanding 93% with this project, and total coverage is shown to increase by 40%. As presented in the application, actually, the clearing is proposed to increase another 500 square feet to 13,549, which would be just 8% under the theoretical maximum allowable clearing on the parcel. And that, even though there is a massive critical need to revegetate about 10,000 square feet of the parcel. The TAM makes clear, and I as a board member are needing to uphold the NRSP standards, agree with the TAM where it says, quote, the project presents a large expansion of residential improvements on a lot where most of the protected vegetation has been removed without a benefit of an NRSP. And that this incremental out of permitted clearing needs to be restored, this is in the TAM, to the maximum extent practicable. Now, the 2013 CO showed clearing limits at the time of 3,306, and I believe Morgan said that is a good reference point to start with when we think about the requirements of revegetation and renaturalization. In addition, we want to note that the applicant violated, I think, at least 2 of the conditions in the 2008 administrative permit. I think it was conditions E and K. So let me go to, so first off, I am going to deny the NRSP for the garage for 2 reasons. First, front yard attached or detached garages are generally not compatible with the character of the neighborhood. They're rather rare, especially at this size. And the board, I believe, has denied a few in the not too distant past. Now, also, I just want to note, someone might come back and say, well, a 600 square foot or a large garage was placed on a property within the last decade, a couple of houses down on the south side. However, I don't believe that was in the board's jurisdiction or NRSP jurisdiction. It needed no variances, so I can't see. And that was also in the side yard and not in the front yard, and that property I don't think needed revegetation. The second important reason, though, why I'm denying this is adding that near 600 square foot structure on top of the expansion of GFA. This will go in the area of the property in the front that as I look at the standards, must be prioritized for dune land restoration and renaturalization. And adding this into the whole mix with the maxing out of the GFA is a bridge too far, as I see it, to be compatible with the NRSP standard. Adding that amount makes the job of restoring or reaching back to the 2013 CO conditions even harder. I don't see the garage as meeting, in addition to the GFA increases, meeting 255, 551D or 255, 540K. Okay, second, turning to the proposed GFA expansion, I found this part of the application to be, I'll just use the word cuspy, relative to NRSP standards I just cited. To approve development expansion, maxing out GFA right up to the maximum allowable, that would be for an as-of-right permit on lands without protected natural features, is generally not considered a given and also cannot be expected. However, I am willing to say that given the size of the lot, and that the largest part of the expansion will generally go in the rear of the parcel that ultimately slopes up to and abuts Route 27, where it's not really visible to people. I could say that it could meet NRSP standards as long as 10,000 square feet of dune land can be restored, or as much as possible of that 10,000 square feet, it just with providing like a 5-foot access passage, around the house. And so I am willing to approve the GFA expansion, the house expansion. However, I'm having a problem procedurally right now because we have nothing to go on. We don't have the re-veg plan. We don't have a restoration plan. It's not marked on a survey. So I actually can't tell you how much of this revegetation is doable. So I feel like I'm on a little bit of shifting sands here, or not on solid ground, because I just don't have any order of magnitude of where the re-veg will come into. So that's where I am on this application.
Member Berger? Okay, this is the worst one. Okay, this is solely an NRSP. And going back to like what was mentioned in the TAM and the clearing back to the 3,306, but going back to what was in the TAM about the 2008 natural resources permit, and where the applicants or whoever is the owner now violated several of the, I was looking for it. Yeah, no turf, no grass, all that. I had that here a second ago.
Turf.
Yes, right. Anyway, that they did not do that. Mr. Berridge did come in and say that they had the CNR and he was going to provide it. I just looked through the files again now, and I don't see it. I don't see that anything was submitted about it. But, Morgan, as she mentioned in the TAM, that she recommends that any areas not proposed to contain structures be restored to their native soil and revegetated with duneland plant species, with the exception of a 5-foot cleared boundary. However, I don't know how that factors into what they did since the 2008 NRSP. So actually, in terms of an NRSP, I was leaning toward denying the entire application unless they could comply and make changes to with the 2008.
In terms of the clearing?
in terms of the
remedy the
clearing
10,000
and,
square feet,
yes,
yes.
yes.
Yeah,
Um,
I understand.
I think this does not meet the NRSP, and as Member Meering already mentioned, there are a lot of questions that, and I missed this hearing, that was the night of the accident, but I did look at the
Oh,
hearing
okay.
several times after that. And I don't see where this meets the natural resource special permit standards at all on this. It's a, as stated in the TAM, a very aggressive development on a non-conforming lot. And so I'm denying the whole thing unless it could come into, be stipulated that it could come into the agreement of 2008 NRSP.
I'll go.
Vice Chair?
I'm going to have to agree with Member Berger on this one. I found this whole application to be lacking. A couple of things right away. There was an administrative NRSP granted subsequently in 2013. A C of O depicted 3,306 foot of clearing, which grew to 13,083 square feet. That's 10,000 feet of clearing on an area that we think has to be maintained as best as possible with construction happening. This is not a little overage. This is 10,000 square feet of damage to duneland in an area, as Member Meering had pointed out, is precious for what's left in the Amagansett area. I thought the idea that we would expect them to replenish beach vegetation, that the fact that this much was cleared, I don't believe this application itself was prepared for the severity of this particular situation. I'm just going to go, I know they've been read, but they're staggering. I'm going to say it anyway. Total coverage is going up by 40%, GFA going up by 48%, building coverage going up by 93%. That's a large ask, and we could make an argument for considering it if we thought that the whole application was right, was moving in the right direction. There was no effort made in the presentation to talk about the 10,000 feet. I don't think this is a casual thing where we can say, well, let's see what the planning plan is. I think we need a real presentation here. When we're looking for a little additional mitigation is one thing. Here, I don't believe what was presented to us attacked what is the real problem with this property. I think the property has to be considered one that has been severely damaged and needs a major plan in place that we can look at and start to talk about and approve and expect our planners to approve. So I'm not in favor of approving any part of this because I just think in terms of an NRSP, it's a significant amount of construction on the house, both on the roadside and of course in the backyard. It's a significant amount of work being done with almost no consideration for us for what to do about taking up, there was some sod, not sod, but there's some grasslands in place. Dune was removed. It's a lot of clearing that didn't exist before. I can see what happened. They just pushed back towards the highway and took out as much as they could of the underbrush. Nonetheless, for me, this is an easy one. I don't think this rises to the standard even being considered for the NRSP. And if we just go to the standards for a minute, 255-51, under preservation of natural resources, I don't believe that there's any effort been made here to preserve the natural resources at all. Alternative reasonable uses of property determined not to exist. There are alternative uses here. There are probably a real discussion to talk about what's going on in terms of architecturally, but I don't want to go that far with it. I'm going to say right now, you have to look for another way to approach this problem. Alternative designs, again, smaller buildings. And then under 255-540, compatibility, I don't think, as was mentioned by Member Meering, in terms of design, we could have the discussion of the garage. I don't believe this is a compatible amount of work in this particular neighborhood. And then environmental protection, which again, it goes back to talking about preservation of natural resources. I think the environment has been damaged in a way here that calls for a major consideration by us on how it's going to be repaired. And I think they have to come back to us if they're going to come back and present what's going to happen first and foremost with that 10,000 feet that was cleared without any kind of approval. So I am emphatically denying this, this application.
Member Kiley?
I agree with Vice Chair, but the presentation I thought was fairly vague. The statement will agree to any re-veg plan. However, the extent of the re-veg plan, you have to present a plan. It's extensive.
Yeah.
And then just can't go on the board if we'll do this. So I have no problem denying this application.
Thank you. Well, before we even look into what they're requesting, there has been no consideration given to having this application even come close to meeting the level of standards that are in the NRSPs. There was not they didn't even present a methodology to naturalize the property. They didn't even attempt to remedy the 10,000 square feet of unpermitted clearing to even be in compliance with a 2008 administrative permit. So before you even look at what they're asking for, they're in violation of NRSP standards because they haven't even addressed the violations that exist on site. So for all the reasons that have already been stated, this absolutely does not meet the level to approve a natural resource special permit. A lot more work should have been put into this. There was really no consideration to the environment whatsoever. So I am approving this application in its entirety. I'm sorry, I am denying this approval of, I'm denying this approval. I'm denying this application in its entirety. It does not meet the standard. And I think we're done. You got that?
Yep.
Thank you.
So I just want to be clear, I was saying I was denying the addition. I was only saying that I can't, I would have considered it if.
Yeah, if we had had
Oh,
a
no, no,
different
no.
presentation.
Well,
Yeah.
if we had had
Right.
the things I just noted addressed prior to asking for something
Right.
else,
Yeah.
you would have thought there was thoughtful mitigation being given before they're asking for what they want. But this on top of what the violations that exist on the property, I mean,
Yeah.
it's the level of,
I was shocked when he said, well, do whatever you want.
yeah,
Okay,
We
that's
still
what we
have to
want.
have that-
This
we
is
still
what
have to
we
have that
want.
on paper.
yeah, yeah, we do.
And somewhere
All right,
here, I
so
lost
now that I got my act together, okay, let's see. So where are we? Oh, good, we're done. Okay, so we put this here. Yes. Other decisions, one Zalak, 100D Forest Road, unit 826 in Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-32-.1-1-226, modification of a 2018 determination.
Yeah, so Mr. Wanzelok's been in front of the board several times with extensions of time. Some of you might remember. This dates back to 2018. Back in 2018, he was approved a 925 square foot manufactured home, decking, relocate a shed. It's all within NRSP jurisdiction of wetlands. The modification request is to install a smaller 835 square foot manufactured home. No reduction in wetland setbacks. Total lot coverage will be reduced by about 20 square feet. The environmental impacts for this modification are not anticipated to be any greater than what was already approved. So we don't have any concerns with this one.
So it's a smaller house, but it's not a greater setback.
Correct. It's essentially the same setback because the wetlands are on to the east of the
Yeah.
property.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I like this one.
I did too, I don't have a
Yeah, I'm good
problem with
with it.
this.
Okay with it.
Everybody's okay?
Who would like to make a motion?
I would. I like this one. I remember this one. So, matter of Wanzelak, 100 DeForest Road, Unit 826 in Montauk, tax map 300-32.1-1-226. I make a motion to approve this modification for the 2018 determination.
Second?
Concur.
Concur.
Next is Mark's 85 Lows Point Road, East Hampton, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-83-3-10.3. Designate an application for a wetland stabilization project and unlisted action.
Right,
Tyler?
so this is obviously within wetland setbacks, but it's a coastal restoration project, so it doesn't need to meet setbacks. Regardless, the application is to use core logs, fill, and including fill of tidal wetlands, plans to stabilize a salt marsh on Lows Point Road. The planning department is recommending designating this as an unlisted action. The permit has already been issued by the DEC, so coordination will be limited, but for now, we just need to designate it as an unlisted action.
Now, what, in terms of process, what is that? How does that, is it a resolution? How does that?
Correct, yeah, the board,
Okay.
yeah.
So I'm going to make a motion to, if everybody's in favor of this, I'm going to make a motion to approve that a resolution, if a resolution is getting prepared, do I make a motion? No, right?
Well, you can make a motion to declare that this
Is an unlisted action.
project is an unlisted action, and then I can draft a resolution.
Okay. So in the application of Mark's 85 Lows Point Road in East Hampton, I make a motion to designate the application for a wetland stabilization project unlisted as an unlisted action and direct council to prepare a resolution.
Second.
Concur.
Does that make us leave it? See you.
I know, I was thinking that too. I'm not sure, actually. 57 Hampton Lane, these are extensions of time. 57 Hampton Lane LLC, 57 Hampton Lane, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-174-7-19. Extension of a 2023 determination.
Right, so this one dates back to 2023. This is their first extension of time. They have a building permit issued for the work. They just need to continue and finish the work and get a CO.
Work is underway.
Yes,
No, yeah.
Okay, let's.
you can sort of see it in the aerial from last year.
It's their first extension.
Yeah, it is, because it was 2000.
It was a
They're
23
good for
one, so
3
it
years.
just expired.
Okay, Member Mary? would
Yes,
you
I
like-
just
okay,
wanted, I
sure.
do want to disclose that I spoke in favor of this application back in 2023, before I was on the board. I don't think that conflicts me to make me recuse from this, but I just wanted to mention it.
He didn't think so.
No, okay.
I don't think so.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've walked by the house and it does, they're pretty far, they're really close to
It's
being
getting
done, I
close to being
think.
done.
So, okay, so in the matter of 57 Hampton Lane LLC, 57 Hampton Lane, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-174-7-19, I make a motion to grant the extension of time for the 2023 determination.
Second.
Concur.
Concur. Next extension of time is Wang and Capio, 59 Seaside Avenue in Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-32-4-24. Extension of a 2015 determination.
Right, this is an old one, and it's a bit strange. They're requesting an extension of time. They've also requested a CO, but they haven't done any work associated with the permit. That's sort of separate from the extension of time. It looks like they reconstructed some decking different than what was there originally. We're dealing with that on that side of it, but for right now, the extension of time side, they haven't done any of the work that they got their permit for. So it said in the application to obtain a CO, but they haven't actually done any of that work. So Morgan is working on it, essentially.
So this is their fourth or so extension?
It would have expired in 18,
Yeah.
so 7th.
Should we wait for more?
What was their approval?
We're just extending.
I can't
all we're
remember. It should tell us
Which is the
here.
pro- oh.
Construct a 783 square foot first and second story terraces and alterations of existing roof line within relative height pyramid restrictions on a parcel land containing freshwater wetlands. But really the approvals was for pyramid. The wetlands are across the street, I think. And so like the driveway would be within jurisdiction, but the house itself, I think is not. So really it's just pyramid. So there are other issues on the property, but this is just an extension of time for additions that appeared, or terraces that appear to have not have been done. Is my understanding.
Is that, it's basically that there's, looks like the driveway comes off a flag, or when I'm looking at a driveway on the
Yeah,
adjoining lot.
I think they have an easement with the neighbor to get, I think the wetlands down here,
Yeah, I
so they
see.
go around it.
Yeah, okay.
I'm good with it. Who wants to make the motion?
Okay, I'll do it. Okay, I'd like to make a motion in the application of Wang and Capio, 59 Seaside Avenue, Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-32-4-24, to approve an extension of the 2015 determination.
Second.
Concur.
Next is minutes approval, draft minutes of Tuesday, June 2nd, 2026.
I'd like to make a motion to approve draft minutes. Excuse me. Of Tuesday and June, it's stuck to my tooth. Tuesday, June 2nd, 2026 for the East Hampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
Concur.
Concur.
Next, we'll move on to resolutions, 287 Old Stone Highway, Old Stone LLC, 287 Old Stone Highway, Springs, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-83-2-21. This wasn't this the one where they filled the wetland?
This was just,
And we sought lead agency?
one was just that was just the lead agency, and
I'm making it a type 1 action.
yeah, that's all this was. I think,
Oh,
I wasn't sure how we were gonna do it, because I drafted it. I sent it, because we kind of just said it at the meeting, so I was just kind of drafted it. I think I sent it to just you, see if you, and then, but I didn't send it to the board, because it was kind of just not really like anything new. I was just drafting what you said at the meeting, which I just drafted the resolution as you guys made it at the meeting.
yes, and what we did at the meeting was designated a type 1 action, and we were seeking lead agency,
Yes,
correct?
that's it, yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let me find that in my mail. I was actually trying to look it up before. And can I forward it to the rest of the board?
Yeah, I can send it to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. So we're not going to do anything right yet. We'll wait.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, the way I had drafted it is it could be, it's done. And it was dated, I dated it for that meeting for last week. So it probably shouldn't have been on the agenda, honestly.
Mm-hmm. So do you want to table it or for another night, or you want me to make a motion now? Because I mean, that's all we did was designated a type 1 action.
Yeah, I mean, I can read it to you if you want.
Okay,
That would be-
I mean, it's only like it's very short.
yeah.
Yeah, that shouldn't have been on the agenda. Give me 1 second.
Sure. I was trying to find it myself before.
I don't know. Hard to look up on my phone.
Let me move on to the next one,
Okay,
if you find it. Gerald Bedrin, 195 Marine Boulevard, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-176-8-24. Member Mering?
Yes, thank you. Just quickly, you'll remember this was an application for a complete redevelopment on an oceanside property in Beach Hampton, and all the improvements that were, they're being moved well forward, and really improve the distance to the dune land. We were, and there's also for a pool. We were unanimous in approving the house, and then I dissented on the variance for the pyramid variances, but the other 4 members approved that. So in the matter,
What night was it?
oh, I don't remember, but maybe it was a 3. So it was not, I'll just say it was not unanimous on the pyramid variances. So in the matter of Gerald Bedrin, 195 Marine Boulevard, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-176-8-24, I make a motion to approve the resolution as written.
Second.
Concur.
Concur. Next is Smith and Griffith, 49 Mako Lane, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-175-6-21.
Yes.
Mary?
Yes, thank you. So again, this was another total redevelopment application on Mako Lane in the same neighborhood, although at a much smaller scale. It's to do a new house in dimensions similar to what this board approved next door not that long ago, and a deck and a small hot tub on the deck. And I believe and an upgraded septic system and a reduction or shift, of the driveway onto the property and to the south. So in the matter, and we were unanimous, I think, in approving this application. So in the matter of Smith and Griffith, 49 Mako Lane, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-175-6-21, I make the motion to approve the resolution as written.
Concur.
Concur.
Yeah, and I found the resolution basically I can read it, but it says, whereas the Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals received an application which, among other things, seeks approval to legalize the filling of approximately 1,300 square feet of wetland on the property to accommodate a driveway, and whereas the location of the proposed action is 287 Old Stone Highway, Springs, and more particularly described on the Suffolk County Tax Map is Tax Map Number 300-83-2-21, and whereas the filling of wetlands is listed as a Type 1 action in Section 128-3-20B3 of the East Hampton Town Code, and is therefore subject to the State Environmental Quality Review, SECRA, and the regulated provisions of 6 NYCRR Part 617, and now therefore be it resolved, the ZBA finds as follows. The ZBA does hereby classify the action as a Type 1 action, and the ZBA does hereby seek the role of lead agency. And that's drafted, and I had a date, that's basically what we said at the meeting. So I can just, if that's okay.
Can I make a motion to approve that and
Yeah.
we go ahead and,
And I'll just get
file
it
it?
stamped, yeah.
okay, good. So in the matter of 287 Old Stone LLC, 287 Old Stone Highway in Springs, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-83-2-21. I make a motion, we approve the resolution as written.
Concur. Oh, I'm sorry.
Concur.
The gun.
You're hanging out with me. Do we have an adjournment?
I'd like to make a motion to close the Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals work session for June 9th, 2026 at 8:56 PM.
Second.
Concur.
Concur.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Matt.
Have a good night, board.